Hey guys, welcome to the Save Continue podcast, where every other week we get together and talk about video games and video game related stuff. As always, I'm Shanae Howard, and with me this week is Ryan Robinson.
Namaste.
Oh, I hate that. That's not you. I don't like that.
Yeah, I didn't. I
I
didn't
don't think
like
I've
it.
ever heard you say that.
I wanted to try it, and
I don't think I've ever heard
I
you. Is it
was
the first
like,
time you ever said it?
yeah, I've never like said it like as a greeting. Like I usually have said it in response to something that I thought was dumb, like as a joke.
Aw.
But yeah, I'm never doing that again.
So what have you been playing lately?
Shit, man. I've actually been playing. I've been playing more games than I probably should because I honestly think that what I need to do is I need to start getting through because I actually went back to the Evil Within this last week, and because like I was thinking about how Tom and I had been doing that playthrough for a while, and then we never finished it because I think COVID happened, and it kind of derailed a lot of things. So I went back to the Evil Within, and I'm trying to finish that. I'm not yet at the part where Tom and I left off, but that game is that game is very silly, and I still haven't decided yet whether or not that game is trying to be silly. I just feel like it is so cheesy most of the time that has to be intentional. There's no way that anybody who was involved with constructing that story took it seriously, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But either way, it's a cool game. Um, and I've also been playing. So my wife and I had been trying this game called Outward. I think I'd mentioned it before, but the long and short of it is like it's an open world fantasy game with a lot of survival elements. So you're cooking your food, and you're finding place. You have to sleep, and you have to drink water to keep yourself hydrated and stuff like that. Uh,
Normal human functions.
well, yeah, but there are also normal human functions that aren't accounted for in most video games. Uh,
Yeah, no, it is.
but like, here's the thing, man, is that like, so lately I've been trying to like find a good, like, because I mentioned Project Zomboid on the show a couple weeks ago. Um, but like ever since I started playing that game, I've been looking for survival games. I've been looking for games with those survival elements in them, and they're actually hard to find, especially if you're talking about the console space, because there's not a lot of them. So I started playing Outward to see if I could kind of get what I was looking for out of that. And by the way, I'm trying really hard not to use the euphemism that I hear in video games a lot, which is scratch that itch, because people are always talking about itches being scratched when they talk about video games. And I don't know why, but it drives me up the fucking wall when people say that. I don't know why it bothers me so much, but I don't get why people say it. What?
It fills a niche.
Yeah. I don't think I like that one either. But yeah, so like that game actually has almost everything that I'm looking for in it, except for the fact that the combat is bad. It is
Oh,
very bad. And I've never played a fantasy game in my life where I actively avoided combat. Because you just have like you because like that's kind of part of the survival aspect, right? Because it doesn't give you any indication of how strong you are. It gives you and it definitely doesn't give you any indication of how strong your enemies are in relation to you. And so you're
mm.
never sure if you could actually, if like you see an NPC, you're never actually sure if you can beat them because you have no metric to gauge how strong they are.
There's not like levels or anything.
No, there's no levels, there's no experience or nothing like that. So I have no
Oh,
idea.
that's that's annoying.
Yeah,
That I don't like. I just hearing about that makes me feel grumpier.
and the problem is that like enemies very rarely are attacking you one on one. They usually have at least one other uh
Oh man.
one other guy with them. So, and that's usually really difficult. Um, but it's cool, man. Besides that, like it's really cool. Like you can like the crafting is really in depth, and you can like it's got like you can like set like when you're out in the wilderness, you can like set up a little campsite, and you can cook food and craft weapons, and you kind of experiment, or you could have recipes that you bought in town, and all that shit's really cool. But the moment you get to the point where you have to fight somebody, then I feel like the whole thing kind of falls apart. uh, which is a shame
So what
because
adds combat to my fun game?
yeah, like because like I don't know, like I start feeling like the game does a really good job of like setting up this idea like this is going to be this grand adventure, you're going to have a great time, and then the moment somebody takes a swing at you, then it's just
Nope.
it's kind of it sucks.
Ruined.
Yeah, and so but it is what it is, and I've gone back to it like maybe 3 times. I've tried playing that game like 3 times, and I think this last time I tried it, I think I'm kind of done with it at this point because because like as much as I want to like it, I can't get behind a fantasy role playing game where the fighting isn't fun. I can't do it.
Like
Um,
where you actively avoid it. It's not even that it's just not fun.
yeah,
It's that it's that it like is that it's bad.
yeah, and
Like
it's like it's obtuse in a way that like
because it's
I can get over if it was just like if it was just bad and it was just something that I had to do, like it was just like another means to an end, then fine. But it's bad and it's like obtuse and difficult, and like I don't like I can't do it.
not even playing.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and I guess like the last one that I'll mention here is is this game, and this is actually going to figure into the conversation we're going to have today. But this is a game called Snow Runner, and I'll tell you what the game is. So basically, it's a game where there are a bunch of maps and real world locations. The first map is in, I don't remember exactly uh, the exact location, but it's like somewhere in rural Michigan. And basically, what you're doing is you have trucks. And when I say trucks, I mean like semis and like those very large trucks that you see. And you're taking those trucks and you're using them to transport goods from one point to another across what is kind of treacherous terrain, like really deep mud or like like water that's like kind of up to here on yous. And the whole point, the whole loop of the game is figuring out how to navigate through that terrain. So like if you're about to drive your truck in mud, you got to figure out a way to like you got to shift into the right gear and navigate through the mud correctly and efficiently, and not try to go too fast because your tires will dig in, then you'll get stuck, and then you might have to use
Get some planks out and
yeah.
like try and
Well, like, and it's funny because they don't have that, but they every truck that you drive comes equipped with a winch that you can attach to like a tree or a pole or something, and you can use that to kind of try to pull yourself out of like the mud that if you're stuck in the mud and stuff. Um, and I've been like that's basically the game. You don't drive really particularly fast. In fact, most of the time you're driving pretty slow because most of the time you're driving through mud or up a mountain or something.
a mountain.
But yeah, but it's a fun game because it's like that's the whole game, right? And like what's interesting to me is when in a game like that where mostly nothing is happening, it's just one of those games where like if you're not watching TV or listening to something, you're kind of just like left alone with your thoughts while you're playing it. And then like so just like and for someone like me, like I have like 1,000 thoughts in my head at any given time. So like I'm playing this game and it's just cacophony of noise inside my skull the whole time, and I'm just like sitting there driving the truck, and that's the whole
Oh
game.
man,
And I'll just be doing that
I
for like 6 hours.
man, no, I after the show, I've been reading some psychology books, and it's so weird that to me, because I also have a constant monologue running through my mind. And knowing certain people don't have that, or they have dialogues in their head, is manners. Like, sorry, keep going on. It's just like,
It's weird, right? Because like a lot because I often for people who don't have that, I'm just like, what is what are your thoughts like? Because my thoughts are just constant noise all of the time.
do you, I've talked to Berto about it, and he's just like, I don't know, like it's just like if something's not relevant, I'm not really thinking about it. I'm like,
Like,
how?
yeah, like because like I just like
I
the
am constantly worried about everything
oh
and
yeah,
constant and
yeah,
and then also like working on it, but like also regularly just putting myself down
yeah,
where I'm just like and like because I'm just replaying every single thing I've ever done in front of anybody at
yeah,
all moments. And I've done a lot of embarrassing stuff, and of course that's what my mind like loves to pick at. I just can't imagine.
yeah.
I want
Like
that life. I
I'm
want that life.
I'm
I'm
like
so jelly.
it takes
Like,
it requires great amounts of energy for me to like
oh,
focus on one thought. If I'm gonna single in on one thought, like I have to actively make that effort.
like
And
I take ADHD medicine and I still struggle with like hyperfixation. Even hyperfixation cannot stop the running monologue.
yeah,
Like it's so, yeah. Sorry, I'm
but
really
any
off topic.
but anyway, that's SnowRunner. So
Uh, uh, so I've been playing a lot of mobile games this week because of a couple reasons. Or the last recently. One is because I've been really trying to get a regular sleep schedule.
yeah,
And one of the things I'm doing with it is I can only play Witcher
I like
when I wake
Witcher.
up before work, like on weekdays. Weekends have different rules.
Yeah,
So I haven't been playing Witcher as much just because I go to work at 4 p.m. and so I've been trying to wake up 12, so I only have like the 4 hours there.
yeah,
And like I still have to like do stuff with the dog and like house and feed myself and bathe and whatnot. Uh, but sleep schedule's going pretty good. I fucking hate it, but it's doing that. And then I've been working a lot to try and make up some hours, but also Luna had some vet stuff come up. So I saw like a Reddit post asking about like favorite like idle games within Apple Arcade, and there's not like a whole lot of those.
sure.
So I've been going outside of the Apple Arcade, and I was like, I don't really play a lot of like idle games. So I download like 4 or 5 of those just to see like what the actual difference is between any of them. And
I can't tell.
unsurprised to anybody, it's the same thing, different
Yeah,
graphics.
yeah, yeah. You like all
And
of them. You just
like,
watch the
like
numbers go up. That's what you're doing.
there's well, like there's like some that like the one of them that I played a lot is like Bermuda Paradise, where like you have to like just like you simply just have to wait until things are done. I mean, it's an idle game and like collect resources and then like make things, and that's how all of like the ones that I'm playing essentially are. And
Yeah.
there's like I do have like the one that's like the Million Wives or whatever, where like it isn't anything. Like you're not like creating anything. There's no like second step, and that seems like there's like that's the only two differences in gameplay. Because like normally other things will have like small differences in mechanics, like different survival games or like strategy games. But like this is pretty standard. Not that it's surprising to anybody, but you know, it's like whenever I am like bored at work or like tuning out, it's been like a fun thing.
Yeah.
I finished Pokemon, and then I've also got back into puzzles. But I was like, I just wanted to bring it up because I wanted to get your because I read the story on Reddit, and this girl, so there's a guy posting it, and like then he updated it, and he had a PS4, was wanting to get a PS5, couldn't find one. And then she comes into his room and like her best friend's there recording and she destroys his PS4 like right in front of him and then like comes out with a PS5 being like, "Hey, got you this." And they're like
Uh.
mid-20s.
Uh.
And he's just like, "What the fuck? You just
Yeah.
destroyed my stuff." And she's like, "But I saw it on TikTok and like he loved it."
Uh.
And then they're like, oh, and like the best friend like also got her boyfriend like a PS5 or Xbox, I think. And he's like, well, yeah, but did you destroy his other old console? She's like, no. And so he ended up breaking up with her. And like he updated his post and was like, hey, like, and he's just like, yeah, if I can't trust you with my like the things that I care about, how am I gonna trust you in this relationship? Like, I know.
Yeah.
And I just like And it just blows my mind. I'm like, mid-20s, you should know that a lot of things you see on TikTok are fake, but also like don't destroy people's property. And I just was flabbergasted because like I couldn't I couldn't imagine to ever want to destroy someone's like even like iPad and like give them a new one or something, even
Yeah.
though there's like the iCloud. It's just like
Well, because like the entire crux of that exercise involves intentionally upsetting somebody, right? Uh,
yeah, like if I was gonna like so say if like Berto was gonna get like smash like a fake Switch
yeah,
because I use a Switch a lot more than him, and then like present like there's like a new Switch, like a new one. It's fine as long as it's a fake Switch. Like and like if, and I would get mad at first, but then I'm like, all right, I have all the things still.
yeah,
Like it's not even just like making them mad; it's also like purposely destroying their stuff. And he's like in like he talked to his friend, they try to pull the hard drive, like nothing could be like done
yeah.
about all his saved data on there. And like I don't have a PS5, so I don't know necessarily how like what with your profile goes over to the PS5. But obviously, like there's a lot of stuff that can't.
Well, I mean, on one hand, like yeah, like most of this, like most of your stuff on PS4 can carry over to the PS5. But also, here's the thing: is that like even if we're not talking about like intentionally upsetting someone by doing that, I think you're also making assumptions about like what plans they would have had with their property, like after you got them that thing. Like maybe I wanted to hang on to my PS4, right? Like we both have PS5s in this house, but like I didn't rush to go destroy our PS4 because like why would I do
Well, you
that?
also did. Oh, you also didn't like fake pretend to destroy your wife's PS4 and then give her the PS5.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, she kind of did that on her own,
I mean, that's true, but still,
but
yeah. And I just like I don't know. It's been like stuck in my mind of like what kind of headspace you'd have to be in to think that that's okay.
well, like that's the thing too is that like I think like the older I get, like the less okay I am with stuff like that. Well, like cuz like it's like anything that
Yeah.
involves like that where the whole point of the video or the whole point of what you're doing is to either make someone upset or make them uncomfortable. Like the older I get, like the less okay I am with stuff like that. And I think
Yeah,
that
like that. Which talk show host does it? But the one where the parents purposely give bad Christmas presents to some
yeah.
of their kids and to cry and like they like and they do it like it's
Yeah.
everyone's favorite
Well,
thing. And I'm like,
that's
no,
a
I'm like, why
that's the
would you
fucked.
want to upset your
Well,
child?
yeah, that's the fucked up part too, right? Is because like on one hand you're like purposely upsetting your child, but on another hand you're also like putting that shit on TV. So like now they're
Yeah,
like embarrassed like on it because like what if their friends see that and then they're getting clowned at school for like a month? So like but
yeah, no, but yeah, no. I just it's been living in my head a bunch where I'm just like because like don't get me wrong. Like I've worked in offices, and I get the whole office space wanting to take like a back to Xerox machine. I
yeah,
get it. I get that.
yeah,
But this is significantly different. Yeah, it's just so nanners. Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's tangentially video game related, but like I think if Birdo purposely destroyed like my computer or any of our electronics to like then fake out, I'd also divorce him. Like I'm unless it was like a fake computer or like a fake switch or something where like I still have all my things, like I'm just
Well, I
no.
think also like the thing is that like you have to remember that like some people have very real triggers with that sort of thing, and like depending on that person's background, like seeing their stuff get destroyed in front of them like might be triggering for them. Like maybe they had a like a an abusive relationship with a parent or a partner or a friend where like that sort of stuff was like done like not as a joke, and and that's another thing to
And
consider. But
siblings.
yeah, so like maybe just don't do that. Like I think that like I understand the sentiment of like like wanting to
Do a big
surprise them.
surprise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like first you were bummed out because your thing is broken, but now you might feel differently because I got you this new and better thing. But that's still my stuff. Like don't break my stuff.
Yeah. No.
Like even like
Uh,
I have got a PS2. It's not hooked up right now, but I've got a PS2 sitting in the closet, and I would like to at some point be at a point where I could easily like hook that up in a place that's like not in the way but like easily accessible so I could play it. But in the meantime, I would prefer it if it remained intact so I don't have to go find another one. Like it's not terribly difficult to find a PS2, but it's more difficult to find a PS2 than it is to just not break my PS2 in the first place and let me use the one that I have in the closet. So,
Facts. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because it's been living in my head. But as far as this topic this week goes, you wanted to talk about how our taste in video games have changed, or what we want to play in video games. Because there's plenty of games that I wanted to play but never got to as a
yeah.
kid that now I don't have any, like I don't have any interest in playing in similar games.
Yeah.
But compared to now, and so I know that we're gonna probably talk a lot more about like at home, but when you first brought it up, the thing that popped in my head was like when I was a kid, normally if I went to arcade, it was alone. Like it was either like an arcade in a mall or like a movie theater one.
Yeah.
And normally like my movie theater one I did more as a teenager, but like normally I wasn't really playing like, but I know like the mall ones like normally my mom would like go to a bookstore and I'd go there, and so I didn't really have people to play with. So I normally play the racing games, but now like I'll play them, but like I don't really have fun. I used to have a lot of fun. Now I want to play all the brawlers because normally when
Yeah.
I go to arcades now, I'm playing with other people and I have my own money, so I can keep like just feeding that machine.
Yeah. Uh, well, like it's funny, right? Because like I've always enjoyed fighting games, right? Like my entire life, right? But here's the thing: is that going into the arcade, it's kind of a different sort of vibe because, in order to play and or practice and get better at the arcade version of a fighting game, I have to spend money, right? And like as a kid, you're like it's especially perilous because you always run the risk of some older, more skillful player like coming up next to
Yeah.
you and putting in their coin, and then there goes your fucking tokens or 50 cents or whatever. And
Yeah,
so
when I was a preteen, I went to Tekken and I felt like some tough shit. And then like an older teenager came and just fucking demolished
it
me.
is always
Because I
going
would
to
play
happen.
I'd play Tekken every week with my dad, so I was like, "Oh, I'm fucking boss of this." But of course, we played on the PS2 where I
Yeah,
had the controller, so it
yeah,
is vastly different playing on the arcade. Yeah,
yeah. So, and so I don't know. I think that like, so basically this conversation started because my wife and I were sitting around and we were talking about like, I don't remember like what made her bring it up, but she started asking me about my like how my taste in games had changed like since I was a kid. And I was telling her that when I was a kid, one of the things that, because I think she specifically was asking about JRPGs, right? And
mm.
so when I was a kid, I was like just totally fascinated with JRPGs, and I think it was a lot of it had to do with the thing that drew me to JRPGs was the ability to walk up to the NPCs and talk to them and see what they had to say. For some reason, like that was always like a major thing for me with
Like in other game, like before that, when we see, because like you can talk to like the shopkeepers and stuff in like River City Ransom,
yeah.
but like older consoles and games, like you don't get to talk like choose who you want to have a conversation with. Not really. Like you have cutscenes where like villains talk,
Yeah.
or if a new like feature gets introduced or whatever, you're like, oh, talk to this like shopkeeper and like they'll explain it. Like you don't. It's not like it's very linear. Like with and yeah, I totally get that because like yeah, keep going though.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
and especially like if you're talking to an NPC and there's a you have dialogue choices. You let me choose between two responses. Like I'm like into it, right? So
Even if like, they have like the same ending
yeah,
response, it doesn't
like
actually matter. It's the illusion of
it
choice.
was like it was like I think that was like my first real exposure to like any sort of like I guess agency in a video game where like where I felt like I was in control of the outcome of this interaction. Whereas like in any other game that I played up to that point, like there was only one way to interact with the NPCs, and that interaction would play out the same way every single time. Like talking about Streets of Rage, like all of the interactions with NPCs in that game is me punching them and until they fall over, and like the conclusion is always the same, right? And so actually,
Yeah, they fall over.
yeah, usually. But like with JRPGs, like getting those dialogue choices or like getting like being able to talk to the characters, that was like really really important to me. And I remember specifically there was when on the PS1 there was a RPG called Saga Frontier. They actually recently re-released it for the PS4, and I think other platforms as well. But I know it's on PS4. But like, so one of the staples of JRPGs was just being able to walk up into people's houses and just don't even worry about it. Just walk into the house. And the funny thing about it is you walk into the house unannounced, uninvited, and you could still, and they'll just talk to you like a regular conversation, right? So in Saga Frontier, there was like, I don't remember how many characters you can choose from, but I think there's like 7 different characters you can choose from, and like they all had their own like little story, and at certain points those stories would intertwine or whatever, right? So one of the characters that you could play as was this robot, and it's a robot who like, surprise, he lost his memory and doesn't know why he's a robot or what he's supposed to be doing. Anyway, so this kid finds you, and he's like, come back to my village, I'm gonna show you to everybody. And so you get to the village, and like the first thing I tried to do, and I saw a house, I was like, I'm gonna go walk into that house and see what's in that house. And then like you try to walk in the house, and the kid is like, what are you doing? You can't just walk into people's houses like that. And like I was just like, oh, I never considered that I shouldn't do that.
Thank you for this lesson in etiquette.
Yeah, but like I played so many of those JRPGs like Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, all of those. But then as I got older, like I just stopped. Like as I got older, I discovered the Elder Scrolls, right? And I was like,
Western RPGs.
yeah. So I was just like, oh shit, look how big this world is. And then I kind of just like stuck with those, and I never really went back.
Do you remember the first time you played an RPG where like a choice you made or a dialogue choice like had a negative ending? Because I remember being like, what the fuck? This is because I did this, I can't do this?
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh man, my mind was absolutely blown. I was like, I could negative consequences like in real life? What the fuck?
Yeah, shit, man. I don't remember most of the dialogue in Final Fantasy VII, admittedly, but I feel like if that were to happen, it probably was in that game.
I think the first one where I was like really cognizant of it, where I wasn't like, I'm sure there's other games I played where I made a negative choice and like just didn't realize it, and like I was like, okay. And this is probably, and a lot of it coincides of like what the internet was doing and how accessible it was to see like walkthroughs for games without having to buy a guide.
Yeah.
But I think Star Ocean was the thing where I was like, I missed one fucking small quest, and I can't go back now because I already completed like that area, or I've like already like done enough options where that's not an option anymore. I was like, so I can't get this thing because I didn't like pick out a hat or whatever. Like this is some fucking bullshit.
It's wild because
I was so mad.
You're the only other person, because like the Star Ocean that I'm thinking of is Star Ocean, the second story for PlayStation 1. That's the only Star Ocean that I've ever played. But
this was, I can't remember which console it was. I want to say it was the original Xbox. No, because it had to be before that because in KOTOR you can make poor choices and not be able to accomplish things, and I already knew that then. But I did play KOTOR later. I don't know. Either way, I'm pretty sure it was a Star Ocean game. Can't remember which one.
Yeah.
I've played more than one.
I have played exactly one, and it was on the PlayStation 1. But
yeah.
So like, it's weird, right? Because like I think about like how the types of games that I've wanted to play have changed over time. but there are certain things that have carried over from my childhood that like are still things that I seek out in video games even now.
Yeah, I see that too. Because arcade had the most differences, I think, in what I like to play. But
Yeah.
like when I was thinking about it, like a lot of the games I wanted to play as a kid, I still want to play now, but for slightly different reasons.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, and it wasn't just video games; it was a lot of things. Like I was one of those like I wanted to be an adult at 5. I want to be able to like agency and like do the things.
Yeah.
I want to play what like adult games were. So like when I saw my sister is over a decade older than me, or my sister's a decade older than me, and so like her friends would come over or like someone would stay with us and they'd play like Fantasy 7 is that's how it was introduced to me. Like I was like, oh, this is a game that adults play because teenagers are adults for some reason in my mind. Because I was a little kid,
Well,
but
they say ass and shit in that game, so
uh, I don't remember doing that. But like all I ever really did with that game is like when I first played as a little kid is like the chocobo. I
sure,
wanted to get a golden
that's the best
chocobo, a
part.
blue chocobo, and a black chocobo. Like I was
Yeah.
like, they're so pretty. Like I want these.
Yeah.
Uh, and so like now I really like Final Fantasy. And like as I got older, like I started liking JRPGs more for like the story and like you said, having the agency and what you want to do in the game. And now I still love JRPGs, but and it's for the story and it's kind of like ingrained. Like I think I showed y'all a picture of me as a kid where I have like I got in like a Backstreet Boys CD and a bunch of like
Yeah.
Pokemon games.
Yeah.
Like I said in the video game, I just finished the new Pokemon and I'm really excited for the next one. And so like that's the same. I don't know. I feel like I tend to like the same games, but just for different reasons. Like,
Yeah.
because like I wanted to, because I mean I did play Halo and like LAN parties, and I played like, and I had like a phase where I played a lot of first person shooters, but I wasn't really into them as a kid, like shooters like Contra and stuff. I played with my cousins, and I liked it, but like that's not the game that we were playing all the time. We're normally playing like Donkey Kong and like taking turns or Reverse City Ransom. Like we'd play Contra, but it wasn't like the biggest of deals. Like
Yeah.
it was just in the catalog. It's just one of the ones that my grandma had.
Yeah.
Uh, so and now like I mean I didn't mention it in the beginning, but I played like Halo last week, and I'm still not good. I have more fun with it, but like I know like Borderlands, but like I'm just not. I've never been a huge shooter person, and that's continued.
Yeah.
I feel like I am still 5 and like the same things. But yeah,
Well,
I don't
like
know. I don't.
it's weird, right? Because I think that like more I think I think now like now that I'm like in my late 30s, I'm kind of like more apt to kind of like seek out things that are like more outside of what I classically would have played. And that takes me back to when I was talking about SnowRunner, right? Like I've found this new fucking fascination with video games that simulate other people's jobs and and like jobs that I would never like actually try to do in real life. Like I'm never gonna want to drive an 18-wheeler. I have no interest in actually doing that. But the idea of doing that in a video game and like, cause like I'm driving these trucks in like muddy backwoods Michigan. I'm like, yeah, that's the stuff. But like, but I think it's different, right? Because like to actually be doing that would stress me the fuck out. But like doing it in a video game, it's fine. And like, and then
It's the fun of other people's jobs without the responsibility or the financial worries.
yeah, and like it's just like different things. Like it's just like so many games where I'm like, let's see what other jobs as games I could find, and
If you
I found
if you get into any of the mama games, I'm no longer going to talk to you.
so like uh I tried Cooking Mama.
1, 2, or like Final Feast or whatever.
Whatever the first one was that came out on the original DS, that's the only one I've played, and that was like 15 years ago, something like that. So like I haven't actually played them since, and like I would look at them and I would be like, that looks about the same. I'm good. And like and then especially like the last one where like there was like suspicion. I think there was one on it was one on the Switch where like it was like suspicion that like it was being like it was like a means of like using your system to mine crypto and shit. So I was just like, I'm good. And so like
I just, oh man.
well
Babysitting Mama is like the thing of my nightmares. That fucking doll. Like
yeah.
nobody ever bought it, so it was always in like every GameStops. Whenever I would like work at different ones, I'm just like, oh, you're
Yeah.
here.
Well, that's a funny thing too, right? Is because like I see games that like there are games that like from back around the time where I also worked at GameStop where I would see the game on the shelf and I always thought about buying it. But I guess like the thing about back then was one I at that time I was getting paid minimum wage, so I had to be a lot more selective about what video games I bought. But I don't know, also like because of that, like I was more apt to settle for what I considered to be like known quantities. Like around the time that was around the time when like games like the first Saints Row came out while I was working there, and like I was like I like GTA. This seems like it's gonna be like GTA, so I'm pretty comfortable with buying this, right? But like anything outside of like what I knew I liked, I was pretty reluctant to try because
I
my funds were so limited.
Yeah, I mean we had like a pretty lenient checkout like game checkout policy. I know like some stores had it differently, but with ours, like, and especially whenever I got more in a managerial role, I didn't give a fuck as long as like obviously if like it's the only copy of the game we have or like things like that. So there's a lot of games I tried while working there to see if I would like, but it also like at the time the role was like 3 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes if like life got in the way, even though I was like working part time or whatever, I mean, I still had other things going on. So like sometimes I'd only play like 2 hours, and like everybody would be like talking about how great the game is, but I'm like, I didn't really enjoy it, and like I wouldn't give it more than that 2 hours. I was just like, oh well, I don't like it.
Yeah.
But like sometimes like games just have like really shitty tutorials, and they get really good after.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, right? Is that I don't really most times I don't really have the patience to wait for a game to get good, right? Like I bought
Yeah,
I bought a game recently, like in the last couple of weeks or so. And the trailer I don't and like again like I was telling a friend of mine, I was like, I need to go back and watch that trailer and see what fucking sold me on this game because I'm not really feeling it now. But it's this game called Dismantle, right? And again, it like the way that it sold itself was like it was like, oh, it's got survival elements and all this other stuff, and like it looked like it was gonna be similar to Project Zomboid in a few different ways. So I tried it, so I bought it, and I played it for a little bit, and like an hour in, I'm like, I don't like this. And
I don't like
well,
it.
and then I got online and like I read what other people saying. Like they were talking about like after this number of hours, the game gets like really really good. And I'm like, I just don't have that kind of time or that kind of patience. So I'm just like, I'll count this as a loss, I guess. But
um, I'd say like I definitely am more open to trying different games than I was like as a kid because I have found some games that like we had for the NES or SNES um uh that like either my grandma's house or my mom's that like I never touched like the Lost Vikings. I
oh yeah,
never I never played it as a kid even though we had it because like the cartridge didn't look interesting to me.
sure. And like back then, that's all you had to
Uh,
go on, really.
yeah. And we had to share like the TV and the NES between five of us. So
Yeah,
like if I'm gonna play something, like it's not for like all it's not for like a fuck ton of time. Uh so like I mean I played that as like in my early 20s or yeah, when I moved back in with my parents. So yeah, my early 20s I played that and I was like, oh, this is a good game.
yeah. What's
So
so
like child Sinead didn't even know.
so like I guess like I don't know like when I think about like the games that I know you played when you were younger, and I think and then I talk to you about the games that you're playing now. The variation seems very slight. Like I feel like you play less Tekken than you played back then, but like you're still
But like
like
I
you
still
still
love Spyro games. Like
yeah
I played like all the game. Like I bought like all the ones that are in PS1 and PS2. Well,
right
not necessarily. I got. And same with Crash Bandicoot. I loved Crash Bandicoot. I played a bunch of the Crash games. But like whenever the like remaster series for both of them, I was like, oh, I want to get those. I was like, I've already played them, and I can't really justify rebuying them. I mean, I guess I could, but I don't know. There is like I think there is only a slight variation. Like there's uh because like I'll try things outside of what like I've talked about. Like I've tried the Phoenix Wright games. I couldn't really get into them.
yeah
Like little kid Shanae would definitely not be into Catherine, like the boobs or whatever. But like the puzzle aspect of it, I wasn't really as much into the puzzle games as I am now.
yeah
Like there's just a slight variance. I just like dug it. Like I found what I liked as a kid, and then I just found like a depth in what I liked and stuck with
yeah.
it.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's what's funny is like I was actually scrolling through my because I went into the PlayStation app and I'm looking at the games that I have played like most recently, and I'm looking like as I'm scrolling down and I'm getting to like the less recent games that I played, like I don't know, I kind of can see myself playing each of these games when I was younger, right? But I think the one thing that has changed is some of the games that I'm looking at are games that are marketed as being like very difficult or extremely challenging, and I think that when I was younger, like between from childhood into my teens, like if a game was marketed as, or probably even into my 20s too, if a game was marketed as being like really hard, then I would probably like I just be like I don't think I want to do that, But like now now if the game seems like if the game has an interesting premise and it's still marketed that way, then I'm just like I think I'll maybe I'll give it a shot. Um, I'm less reluctant to try games that are like that sells themselves as being really hard because I'm like well that sounds interesting, so maybe I'll still like it just the same. Um,
Definitely was more into more competitive games when I was younger. Because like if we're gonna take so like going, I mean from childhood to now, I would say there's less variance. I'd say between like 15 and 22, there's probably a lot more variance than what I play now.
yeah,
Because I was like, because like I played World of Warcraft for like years,
yeah,
and I would raid and I would do all the things there, and like I would do a bunch of lore stuff. So like that has like a bunch of different like aspects in that game. And I feel like definitely when I was younger, I would be more apt to play more competitive games because I was insecure and like I was like, well, I'm good at like I can kick your ass at this though. Like and like that's some metric of me as a person. Uh, and once like that calmed down, and also like especially like mid-teens, I'd say like up until 20, like 15 to 20. I also like was insecure about in some aspects like about like my status as a gamer because that's when like I don't know about like your region, but I know like where I was, it was like really big about like being a real gamer or
yeah,
like a fake girl gamer.
right,
And I felt that like people who did discredit me, like I should stand up to them. Like, no, I'm a real gamer. I play this. And like as I like obviously got out of teenage years, I realized normally the people who are saying these things, they don't play video games. So, and if they do, fuck them. They're
yeah,
assholes.
yeah,
They're like I don't have to prove anything to anybody. Like I know I play video games and they are important to me and I really enjoy like not only playing them but like the art that goes into them, the thought process it does, and I think that they can be and I think they're wonderful pieces of content.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I just like yeah, once I got more settled in that, I kind of just went back to what I was playing last time.
Yeah. Well, like what's funny is like I mean I have a whole lot of feelings about the whole gamer designation, but I won't get into that right now. But like when I like were like in the places where I lived, right? Like most of the time, as far as like me playing video games, it was kind of like I happened to make friends who played video games, and I kind of really didn't worry about it outside of that. And I never really thought about like, and I don't know if this is a generational thing or if this is like a regional thing. I don't know, but like a lot of the time, like when I think about when I was playing video games as a kid, I had one or two friends that would come over and play video games with me, or go to their house and play video games. And
Mhm.
then like, but like a lot of my time spent playing video games was just like by myself, and I didn't really think about it outside of that. And like, I didn't know if like, I knew girls who played video games like sometimes, but like I never really thought about it. Like it wasn't a thought that ever occurred to me. Um,
Yeah, I would I think it was the Spyro Year the Dragon when that game came out was the first time like because I can remember like this is like a very like vivid memory but of like being in school where they like were doing like a tornado drill and of course the were kids were over it and I'm just talking about the newest Spyro to like one of my classmates and that's like the first time someone was like that's a boys game. I was like, no, like I own it. Like it's not a boys game. Girls can do it too. Like
yeah,
what? Like
yeah,
no, no, no. Like I play it, and then like I remember like fourth and fifth grade, I based my like female best friends on like ones that played video games as well. And one of them, I really loved her, and she was like super cute, but like she's like, well, I play Pong, so I would go over to her house and play Pong and like try to introduce like other games to see if she would play them with
yeah.
me. And she did, and we actually like a year mid-pandemic we like reconnected and found each other on social media. Like, hey, is your life going good? I'm like, oh, your life is going great, awesome.
Yeah. Still playing Pong.
Yeah, only Pong.
Yeah. But what's funny
uh,
is that like
but yeah,
when it comes to like people's like when I go to other people's houses, or if I'm looking at the inside of someone's house like on TV, like if I my eyes will always find their TV, and I will always check to see if there's a video game console connected to it. I don't know why I do that,
uh,
but
I also do that. Like, I went before Christmas. I had a friend that I had a coworker that was having a hard time getting Christmas ornaments that they wanted in a specific style, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I actually have a bunch of those that I never use. You can just have them." So
yeah.
I went and dropped them off at her house, and so like. She invites. So I'm driving, and it's like a 30-minute drive. So she's like, "Yeah, no, come in, have a beer, or whatever." And I immediately like I go into the living room and I'm standing there and I look over and I see a bookshelf, so I walk over to it and I'm just like start going through the video games like, oh, you like this one? Talk about this one. And me and her were just going over them.
Yeah.
She has all the Sims, and I was like, started talking about all of those. And yeah, no, I that's pretty much like my main focus point is I'm like, what's your entertainment system like? What you got on that?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like there was a period of time where I would like no matter what, if I went over to someone's house, whether they actively play video games or not, there was almost always a Wii hooked up to their television.
Oh, I had one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I do kind of miss the Wii peripheral like phase, but also like they're awful because they're like cheap plastic and like they take up so much space. They're not easy to store anywhere.
Yeah. But
But yeah,
well, so
but I would judge people on their Wii stuff. But now my mom she loves her Switch and she loves the Wii and she has all the peripherals.
yeah.
And like whenever we play any driving game, she's like, "Oh, let me get my wheel."
uh but yeah, like that's a funny thing too, right? Because like when I was a kid, I would play a lot of racing games. Like not a lot, but like one thing that would like draw my attention, and like especially like if we're talking about arcades, is like one thing that would draw my attention is like a race. Like if I saw a racing game, I would always like go over and check it out and see like what that game was about and see if I wanted to put some coins in. But then like around the PlayStation 1 era, a game called Destruction Derby came out. and I remember watching the commercial for that game, and
I'm thinking Monster Jam when you say Destruction
yeah,
Derby. Sorry, keep going.
so I remember the commercial for that game, and it would show. It was just basically it was like it was a video game. It was Demolition Derbies turned into a video game, right? And so I was seeing like the cars getting deformed in real time and all this stuff, and it's something that I had never really seen a whole lot of in video games up to that point. And ever since then, I became like obsessed with that concept of like real time damage modeling on vehicles in video games, and like even to this day, like that's still something that I look for in any driving, like in any game that has driving in it. I will look for that, and like the feeling has faded somewhat since then. But if like my car runs into something in a video game and like it doesn't get deformed in some way, like there's a little feeling of like because like
Yeah, because yeah. No, I know what you mean.
yeah, and like because
uh,
I was playing gosh, I don't remember. I think it might have been it was Need for Speed. It was one, I don't remember which one it was, but I was playing it, and I ran into a wall or like another car like at a really high speed, and my car was mostly fine, and I was just like, huh, but
I
but
yeah, I like I said earlier, like when I went to the arcades, I normally play racing games because those are pretty easy to play by yourself.
yeah,
Either racing games or time splitters. Like whenever a lot of the arcades around me started having more of the time splitters, just because I thought the concept of stepping on the
when you
thing
say
to
time splitters, are you
reload.
referring to Time Crisis?
What's the one where I think of Time Crisis. What's the one where you step on the pedal
Oh yeah,
and, to reload?
that's Time Crisis.
Sorry,
Time Splitters
my
is
brain
great
not
too, but Time Crisis.
my brain no work good. I knew it had the word time in it, so like thank you for correcting me. But yeah, no, because I thought that concept was cool, but that one it would eat up my money and it was really hard to do by yourself.
Yeah,
So yeah, it just like racing games were normally the go-to that were pretty easy to like spend some time while my mom like does her like bullshit and like not just eat up money.
yeah,
And then I think the last like racing game that I can recall being into was uh Split Second.
yeah, yeah. And like it's funny because
And
I never really got to play that game, but like everybody that I know who's played it has spoken very highly of it. And
yeah.
that game actually did come out at a time when I was still trying to play like a lot of racing games. I just never bought it again because of the limited
I
fund
will
situation.
say when you get damaged, your car gets damaged. It's
That's
the
pretty
thing you like.
cool. I do like that. I do like that. Um,
Uh
but yeah,
yeah, no,
like I would play like I used to play a lot of racing games, like a ton of like very arcadey racing games. And then like over the last I don't know, like last 10 years or so, like I like them like is like I do like I am someone who very much enjoys cars, and I like, I like driving them, but like my interest in like buying and playing racing games has like it fluctuates. Like 10 years ago I was buying them all the time, and like more recently I've kind of just been like not really, not really gravitating toward them very much.
the only commonality is that they're vehicular, but I feel like you went from racing games to space games. You're like, yeah, what's
Yeah.
what's the vehicle that can move the fastest? Oh, light speed? That's faster than
Well,
these
like
racing cars.
that's funny too because like I don't, and because when we were talking about it last night, I was trying to think about like where my interest in space games came from, because I don't really know that I had a lot of experience playing a lot of them, and if I did, a lot of the time they were like kind of like a shooter of some sort, like
That that area like a Galaga sort where
yeah,
it's like
I remember playing TIE Fighter, but like that wasn't like an open like exploration based game, right? Um, so like I don't really.
I'd say that it makes sense with it if like what drew you to JRPGs as a kid was the fact that you have agency and the fact that like space is just a completely unknown thing, and a lot of those like space exploration games you can kind of do whatever the fuck you want, and it's so massive that does like lend itself to like you have your own agency and kind of do what you want.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like it can kind of like translate on there.
Yeah, and I think like so I remember I got into Elite Dangerous around 2015 because that was like one of the first games I bought for my 360 my Xbox One when I first got it. And the year after that, No Man's Sky came out. And I sort of and but it's been another one of those things, right, where like once I find a game in a genre that I like, then
You don't play all that genre.
well, it's not necessarily that, but like I sort of start to hone in on what I want out of that kind of video game. And
Hmm.
so it becomes like this search for what I consider to be my perfect space game. And I have like a list of things that I would love to have and like have in one game. And there are tons of space games that have one or between one and three of those things, but none of them that I've played has all of them. And like sometimes like I'll be searching around like Steam or PSN, and I'll just be like, that looks like it might be the game that I've been looking for, and then I'll play it, and then it's not, and so the search continues. Um, but
uh, yeah, no, I think a good, I think a majority of the games that I own, that if I were to like have 10-year-old Shanae pop up, and I'm like, yeah, no, go ahead, keep playing them.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
like
and I'm fine with that.
what kind of like what are some games now that you play? Like what are some kinds of games now that you're playing that you didn't play when you were a kid? That if you could
Otome
if
games,
Okay, so
Otome games,
if you could
for
go,
sure.
if
I
you could
that
show
that
like 10-year-old Shanae Otomi games, what do you think she would? How do you think she would feel about those?
uh 10-year-old,
Yeah,
probably that I'm playing like little kid games because it's not like what other adults like are popularly playing.
yeah,
Like I'd probably be like, so I was 10 in 2001 because I'm a baby.
yeah, little
I'm
baby.
not. I'm one of the older people at work. It fucking sucks.
It's funny.
Uh,
I was 16 and I was driving myself around.
yeah, I was wearing pajamas with mice on them. Uh, yeah, no, she would probably just think that they're not what other adults are playing. So she probably wouldn't be as interested in them. I think that like a couple of the more like darker ones, she'd be down for. Like because like there's a lot of games that I did play just because like I had no other options. I've heard about it before. Like my grandma and certain families, they buy me like Sabrina the Teenage Witch or Barbie games or Angelica from the Rugrats, all of her games,
Yeah,
because she had her own line of video games, like things like that. Like I probably think that like some of the cuter ones, I'm just like I'd be disappointed in myself about.
yeah.
uh, but yeah, because what was coming out in 2001? Uh, well, Kingdom Hearts came out 1999.
No, it didn't. Hold on.
No, it came out 2001. You're right. It was an odd year though.
I think Kingdom Hearts came out, and I mean close enough. I'm not gonna find the exact year, but it was around the early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean I was playing a lot of like with my cousin Digimon, like Rumble Arena,
Yeah.
uh, and I think pretty shortly after that, like one of my sister's friends that was staying with us brought home Silent Hill, and then probably in the next couple of years, I played Fatal Frame.
Hmm.
So I was like, yeah, like I like some of the more like scary Otome games because there are like ones that are like really dark without it being like rapey.
Yeah.
Uh, like there's just some that like everyone just has like a really dark story or like the whole like it's like in a different universe. Like there's a bunch of like them like that. I think I think she'd be down for that. Not the cute ones. She'd
Uh,
tell me I'm too early.
I uh, I was thinking about how like if I showed 10-year-old Ryan Elite Dangerous, he would fucking hate it. Like, I think 10-year-old, because like I think about all the
You don't
times.
have the patience.
Well, yeah, because I think about a bunch of times where there are games that I would think of from time to time that I played when I was younger that I never got very far in that I would like to try again now that I'm older because like I can better grasp the concepts or what the game is trying to do instead of like whatever the fuck I was doing back then. And
Yeah, I was pretending to be Cloud and that I had a Buster Sword. I don't want fucking cute
yeah,
office romances. Like
yeah. Yeah, so like I think that 10-year-old Ryan, he would like if you gave him Elite Dangerous, then he might figure out how to get the ship to take off, and then the first time he crashed the ship and realized that he didn't know how to fly it, he would stop playing it.
Reminds me of that story that Tom told where like him and his sister tried to play that one game where they try to get
Yeah,
the
oh the
helicopter off
yeah.
and like
Yeah. Uh and
that's
but
funny.
yeah, and like I know that like I've always I've always liked first person shooters. What's funny though is that like a lot of the genres of video games that and maybe this is a universal thing that I guess I haven't really talked to anyone about, but like a lot of my interest in different genres of video games came from like an initial fascination about a specific aspect of that game. And with first person shooters, I had never played like when I first saw a first person shooter, I had never played a game where I played it from the perspective of my character before. I had just never done that before. And so it was just like this
Mm.
whole novel concept to me. And so first person shooters were like the coolest thing in the world to me at that point. Um, that,
Yeah, I didn't like a lot of the change. Like so like I remember I don't know like not necessarily first person shooters, but there's certain games that like I just realized I didn't like because I've never done it before, and so therefore like it was uncomfortable. It was either A uncomfortable or B I was bad at it, and so I was like, no, I don't like
yeah,
it. Just because like I mean, um, also a universal thing. Like I like the things that I'm good at.
yeah,
So if this is new and I'm not good at it or it makes me uncomfortable, nah. But like at least I will later because like I said I think like there's definitely been points in times in my life where I've been way more open. Like when I was like a preteen, I was like playing more of like the horror games. I don't really play a lot of like scary games now. Uh, but like I was open to it, but that's just because I wanted to be an adult, and this is what adults are playing. So
yeah.
I have to do it because adults are doing
Yeah,
it.
well, like I think about like there was a time when I could not play scary games, right? Like I remember, um, the night I rented Resident Evil 1 and also Soul Edge, and like I remember trying to play Resident Evil 1, and the first time like that iconic scene where that zombie like looks like turns like looks over his shoulder at you, I was just like nope, and I turned the game off, and then
Oh no.
yeah, and I was like, I'm just gonna play Soul Edge for the rest of this rental period. I'm not touching Resident Evil again. And then like at some point, like I remember I had rented a game that had that like the game at retail came with a demo of Resident Evil 2, and I remember watching my friend play that, and I was like, that doesn't look so scary. And then I played Resident Evil 2, and then I was just fine. Uh, but
Yeah.
then of course I played Silent Hill. Then I was scared of games again. Um,
Yeah, there was definitely times I remember playing Silent Hill and that I would get scared, and because like we all had like the shared one, I it wasn't Silent Hill, but I remember Fatal Frame. There's like a hallway section that like I kept messing up on, and like the ghosts were getting me, and so like I was just getting tenser and
yeah,
tenser to where I just like handed the controller to like my sibling or like one of their friends. I was like, hey, can you do this part? Because I was like, I can't anymore. like
yeah.
like I'm so scared.
What's funny though is like ironically like and this is something that I actually realized when a couple of years ago because we'd done a playthrough of Silent Hill 2, and I think like after that, like I kind of like watched I watched some clips of that again, and I was just like, I don't think that I like Silent Hill as much as I did when I was younger. And it kind of made me think about like what are the things that drew me to Silent Hill in the first place? And I think a lot of it had to do with like it was dark in a way that I'd never seen video games be dark before, and it was violent in a very specific way that I'd never seen before. And I think that a
Yeah,
lot of
like
fascination of that game came from that for me.
yeah, I think I played Fatal Frame first, but I just remember playing it and just being like amazed that there wasn't like combat. Like it was just scary, and
Yeah,
I had never played anything like that because I didn't know about the Famicom or a lot of like like horror titles or anything until I was older because this is just all the things that like all the media that was just brought to me.
yeah, yeah, and
uh, and nobody like my age like or like that I hung out with like really was like playing those games because yeah, like I had a couple like friends, like I said, like I had like a best girlfriend and like a best guy friend that like and both of them played video games, but like I wasn't it wasn't like a group of us.
yeah. Yeah, and
Uh
I don't know. I've never really actually like had like a large group of people that I played video games with, right? And I think like the
and that didn't happen until I was a teen, and then we would
yeah,
have like Halo LAN nights or
yeah,
whatever, and it only was and it was never like me setting it up. It was like
yeah,
them and their friends, and I get invited.
yeah, and I think like the proliferation of like online communication and like things like Discord and Reddit and Facebook and shit like that have made it easier for me to network with other people if I want to play video games with other people and like find a group of people to play
Oh
games
yeah,
with. But
it's so easy to find a raid group in MMOs now,
yeah,
compared, especially like, and then whenever I remember being amazed when World of Warcraft started doing the dungeons where like it would like be like a group finder thing where
yeah,
like you would go in like as DPS and like they would
yeah.
find a healer set up for you.
That's such
Oh
a
man,
huge quality of life change.
because I remember like I just remember struggling so much, like, and it took a while to start rating. Not because I was bad at the game, but because like, it was so hard to find a group where, like, as a young female, like, I didn't have to deal with bullshit,
Yeah,
but also, like, communicated well, and, like, we could figure out when to set up, like, times and stuff like that. And then it became a lot easier, and that's when I stopped talking on mic, and it became even easier.
yeah, yeah. And
And then
that definitely makes things harder, right? Because like as a girl or a woman, like playing video games like on the internet is like always a very precarious situation. Um,
every situation, it's just that it happens enough times where there's like toxic people, and even if it's a toxic minority, that it just like it puts you off of it
yeah,
because like
yeah. Because I
and
think
it's
I,
and
I think a lot of times when people is like, well, that's a minority, but like if that's all I'm exposed to, it doesn't matter how many people are actually doing it. If that's all I
and
get, then it
and
sucks.
and like if you're neutral about something, like it's there's no way to like express that and be like if you're like, hey, I don't care if you're a girl, like good showing out there, whatever, because that seems fucking like condescending as fuck.
Yeah,
Like there's if you acknowledge that you don't care, then it seems like you're lying and you do care, and that's awkward.
yeah,
And yeah, it's like it's a weird thing. So like yeah, not saying that like that was my experience all the time, and I've talked about on the show multiple times the great experiences I've had
yeah.
with like online and like groups and stuff like that. And but it adds another facet of on there of like making it something that was already like not the most fun experience like more difficult.
Yeah, and like I think like, and that's another thing too. Like even, and that's another one of my taste that's changed as well. Is that like I do like playing games online, but I am far less apt now to play games online with strangers because of just experiences that I've had. Like I've mentioned before how like one of my first experiences with multiple games, like was maybe it's Red Dead Online or Halo or Call of Duty. Like my initial experience with those games is almost always getting called the N word at some point, and so I'm just like, it got to the point where I just like I can't, I can't do it. And like people say like it sucks though because like people are always like that's why I mute comms in every online game I play. And I'm just like, well then why do you play on like why do we play online anymore then? Like what's the point anymore? If like if that's what it is,
I mean,
then
comes in Halo, and I don't know if like other shooters do this, so because I don't play them,
yeah,
but with like Halo Infinite, if I'm looking at a direction and I press the directional up button on my remote, then it'll flag it like enemy here.
yeah,
So I do that a lot to communicate with my team, and then I'm just on like a separate comm with like my friend Sean that I play with, and or like what or his cousin joins us. But like yeah, I don't like I like that there's that aspect where I can play without having it to be there. But even before I figured that out, which I just figured that out like last week that existed, I was like, hey, how's that person like flagging this? He was
yeah.
like, you just need to press up, and I was like, oh, I never touched the directional because I didn't need to.
Yeah, and that seems like that's
And
it's funny because like that has become like that has evolved as to such a prominent feature in shooters now is because like it's development kind of adapting with the changing landscape of like yeah people don't really talk on comms and video games anymore because a lot of the times people take that opportunity to be shitty. And so how do
and
we
you can't really, I mean, and you can't really stop people from trying to be shitty because even in like games like Club Penguin,
yeah
I think one of the like pre-recorded phases of what people would say like to essentially mean fuck you,
yeah
and it's just like even if you only have an option of like very few ones, people are going to find a way to use it to troll, like, and
yeah
it's an unfortunate reality, but yeah, like it's yeah, yeah. I'd say I don't know whether games have that. I didn't even know it existed until
Yeah,
last
there are
week.
like I know that Battlefield has been doing it for a while, and I know that like that was a huge talking point with Apex was like you can basically Apex has things to facilitate communication and teamwork without you ever actually saying anything, and that's really cool. It just sucks though that like and I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are fine with it, but it just kind of sucks that like one of the things that was always really exciting to me about playing video games online was like the fact that like I'm connecting with this new person and I could possibly have like a really cool interaction with them and like maybe like even make a new friend, but like now that's like that feels like such a remote possibility that's not worth risking anymore.
Yeah, like when I played PUBG, when I play Halo,
Oh man, man,
like
I'm just remembering like the fucking airplane and PUBG like with comms on. It was just like just an
oh
orchestra of racism.
oh yeah, oh man, the uh like, and it's just people just showing the world how many cuss words they've learned. Like,
Yeah,
hey, look at this. I
yeah,
know these phrases. Are you proud of me? Like, that's what it felt like.
yeah,
And it was so annoying. And I hated all of it. And yeah, like, I do see what you mean. But because, except for MMOs, I have never experienced that with any online capacity. Like, where I've met somebody and they're cool, or we've played it. Like, it's always when we played a couple of games and we never talk, and like maybe afterwards, like one of us on like Xbox will be like, "Hey, good job," or
yeah,
like, "I'm playing," and that's it. I'm like, "Ah, they're my new best friend. Love them." Never said a word to them.
yeah.
and 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 that I probably, if it had existed in a capacity where I could access it, I probably, as a kid, would have been more interested in talking online. But uh, because of my experiences and as like a teenager and a young adult, like I'm never going to have all the comms on. Like
Yeah,
it's. I don't like making myself upset.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it goes.
But yeah, did you have anything else that you wanted that we haven't brought up that you and her were talking about? Or anything else on your mind with the topic?
You know, I think that one thing that I've learned over the last like year or so is that like it's really like I started to there was a point where I was starting to feel like um video games were starting to stagnate for me just because like I wasn't finding anything. Like I would buy games or I'd play games and I would just be like none of this is really like really grabbing me in the way that like these experiences used to. And then it wasn't until like I started playing games that were like outside of the norm that that sort of kind of revitalized itself for me. And so I think that like honestly, like I think that it's not always going to pay off, and there are probably going to be a lot of times when it doesn't. But I think that like every once in a while, like maybe like depending on like how often you buy games, like let's say you buy 5 games a year, like make one of those games like a game that you wouldn't normally play, and maybe you'll find a new genre or a new type of game or a new series that you're into that you wouldn't have considered otherwise. So be open minded, I guess.
Um, my closing thoughts is, thank your past self for building up the muscle memory and the things that you're good at in video games now. Because
Yeah.
it's helped me. Because I would, yeah, always like just pick one aspect, like the chocobos or something, in like previously, and just like focus on that. And now I'm really good at tedious stuff.
See, it worked out.
Yeah. But that's our show today. Hopefully next time we have Tom join us. But if you want to listen on somewhere that you're not listening already, we are on like Podomatic, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, uh, iTunes. We have the YouTubes if you want to see our beautiful faces.
Yes.
And we have a Discord, which will be linked somewhere. And bye, guys.
Bye.